Today we're continuing on with the best Christmas pageant ever by Barbara Robinson. If you've missed any of the previous videos, there's a link to the story's full playlist in the description below. Chapter 6 coming up next. Welcome to Read with Maren, where I share with you fun, wholesome, and inspiring stories that you can share with the whole family. Stay to the end, and I'll share with you some of my thoughts as well as the inevitable bloopers. Let's begin Chapter 6. Our last rehearsal happened to be the night before the potluck supper, and when we got there, the kitchen was full of ladies in aprons, counting out dishes and silverware and making applesauce cake for dessert. "I'm sorry about this," one of the ladies told Mother, "but with so much to do at this time of year, the committee decided to come in this evening and set up tables and all. I just hope we won't bother you." "Oh, you won't," Mother said. "We won't be in the kitchen. You won't even know we're there." Mother was wrong. Everybody in town knew we were there before the evening was over. "Now, this is going to be a dress rehearsal," Mother told all of us, and right away, 3 or 4 baby angels began hollering that they forgot their wings. Half the angel choir had forgotten their robes, and Hobie Carmichael said he didn't have any kind of costume. "Wear your father's bathrobe," Charlie told him. "That's what I do." "He doesn't have a bathrobe." "What does he hang around the house in?" "His underwear," Hobie said. I looked at Alice Wendelkin to see if she was going to write that down on her pad of paper, but Alice was standing all by herself in the corner, patting her hair. Her hair was all washed and curled, and her robe was clean and pressed. She even had put Vaseline on her eyelids so they would shine in the candlelight, and everyone would say, "Who's that lovely girl in the angel choir? Why isn't she Mary?" I guess Alice was afraid to move for fear she might spoil herself. "Don't worry about your wings," Mother said. "The main point of the dress rehearsal is to go right straight through without stopping, and that's what we're going to do, just as if we were doing it for the whole congregation. I'm going to sit in the back of the church and be the audience." But it didn't work that way. The baby angels came in at the wrong place and had to go back out again, and a whole gang of shepherds didn't come in at all, for fear of Gladys. Emma Jean couldn't find the baby Jesus doll and wrapped up a great big memorial flower urn in the blanket and then dropped it on Ralph's foot. And half the angel choir sang "Away in a Manger" while the other half sang "O Little Town of Bethlehem." So we had to start over a lot. "I've got the baby here," Emma Jean barked at the wise men. "Don't touch him. I named him Jesus." "No, no, no!" Mother came flying up the aisle. "Now, Emma Jean, you know you're not supposed to say anything. Nobody says anything in our pageant except the angel of the Lord and the choir singing the carols. Mary and Joseph and the wise men make a lovely picture for us to look at while we think about Christmas and what it means." I guess Mother had to say things like that, even though everybody knew it was a big lie. The Herdmans didn't look anything out of the Bible. More like trick or treat. Emma Jean even had on these great big gold earrings, and she wouldn't take them off. "Now, Emma Jean," Mother said, "you know Mary didn't wear earrings." "I have to wear these," Emma Jean said. "Why is that?" "I got my ears pierced, and if I don't keep something in them, they'll grow together." "Well, they won't grow together in an hour and a half," Mother said. "No, but I better leave 'em in." Emma Jean pulled on her earrings, which made you shudder. It was like looking at the pictures in National Geographic of natives with their ears stretched all the way out to their shoulders. "What did the doctor say about leaving them in?" Mother said. "What doctor?" "Well, who pierced your ears?" "Gladys," Emma Jean said. That really made you shudder. The thought of Gladys Herdman piercing ears. I thought she probably used an ice pick, and for the next 6 months I kept watching Emma Jean to see her ears turn black and fall off. "All right," Mother said, "but we'll try to find something smaller and more appropriate for you to wear in the pageant. Now, we'll start again and go right straight through and I think I ought to tell him what his name is, Imogene said. No. Besides, you remember it wasn't Mary who named the baby. I told you, Ralph whacked Imogene on the back. I named him. Joseph didn't name the baby either. God sent an angel to tell Mary what his name was going to be. Imogene sniffed. I would have named him Bill. Alice Wendelkin sucked in her breath, and I could hear her scratching down on her pad of paper that Imogene Herdman would have called the baby Bill instead of Jesus. What angel was that? Ralph wanted to know. Was it Gladys? No, Mother said. Gladys is the angel who comes to the shepherds with the news. Yeah, Gladys said. Unto you a child is born, she yelled at the shepherds. Unto me, Imogene yelled back at her. Not them, me. I'm the one that had the baby. No, no, no. Mother sat down in the front pew. That just means that Jesus belongs to everybody. Unto all of us a child is born. Now, she sighed, let's begin again and... Why didn't they let Mary name her own son? Imogene demanded. What did that angel do? Just walk up and say, name him Jesus? Yes, Mother said, because she was in a hurry to get finished. But Alice Wendelkin had to open her big mouth. I know what the angel said, Alice piped up. She said, his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. I could have hit her. My Lord, Imogene said. He'd never get out of first grade if he had to write all that. There was a big crash at the back of the church as if somebody had dropped all the collection plates. But it wasn't the collection plates. It was Mrs. Hopkins, the minister's wife, dropping a whole tray of silverware. I'm sorry, she said. I was just passing by, and I thought I'd take a peek. Would you like to sit down and watch the rehearsal? Mother asked. No, Miss Hopkins couldn't seem to take her eyes off Imogene. I'd better go check on the applesauce cake. You didn't have to say that, I told Alice. All that about wonderful, everlasting Father and all. Why not? Alice said, patting her hair. I thought Imogene wanted to know. By that time, everyone was hot and tired, and most of the baby angels had to go to the bathroom. So Mother said we could take a 5-minute recess. And then we'll start over, she said, sounding kind of hopeless. And go right straight through without stopping, won't we? Well, we never did go right straight through. The 5-minute recess was a big mistake because it stretched to 15 minutes, and Imogene spent the whole time smoking cigars in one of the johns of the ladies' room. Then Mrs. Homer McCarthy went to the ladies' room and opened the door and smelled something funny and saw smoke. And she ran straight to the office and called the fire department. We were singing Angels We've Heard on High when what we heard was the fire engine pulling up on the lawn of the church with the siren blaring and the red lights flashing. The firemen hurried in and made us all go outside, and they dragged a big hose to the front door and were looking for a fire to put out. The street was full of baby angels crying, and shepherds climbing all over the fire truck, and the firemen and all the ladies in the potluck committee, and the neighbors who came to see what was going on, and Reverend Hopkins who ran over from the parsonage in his pajamas and his woolly bathrobe. Nobody knew what happened, including the Herdmans. But I guess they figured that whatever it was, they had done it, so they left. Why in the world did you call the fire department? Mother asked Miss McCarthy when she finally heard the whole story. Because the ladies' room was full of thick smoke. It couldn't have been, Mother said. You just got excited. Didn't you know that was cigar smoke? Miss McCarthy stared at her. No, I didn't. I don't expect to find cigar smoke in the ladies' room of the church. She whirled around and marched back to the kitchen. But by that time, the kitchen was fuller of smoke than the ladies' room because while everyone was milling around the street, all the applesauce cake burned up. Of course, the ladies in the potluck committee were mad about that. Miss McCarthy was mad, and Alice said her mother would be good and mad when she heard about it. Most of the baby angels' mothers were mad because they couldn't find out what happened, and somebody said Miss Hopkins was mad because Reverend Hopkins was running around the streets in his pajamas. It turned out to be the one great big sinful thing Alice kept hoping for. Mrs. Wendelkin read Alice's notes, got on the telephone that very night, and called up everybody she could think of in the Ladies' Aid and Women's Society. And she called most of the flower committee and all the Sunday school teachers and Reverend Hopkins. And Reverend Hopkins came to see Mother. "I can't make head or tail of it," he said. "Some people say they set fire to the ladies' room. Some people say they set fire to the kitchen. One lady told me that Imogene threw a flower pot at Ralph. Mrs. Wendelkin said all they do is talk about sex and underwear." "That was Hobie Carmichael," Mother said, "talking about the underwear. And they didn't set fire to anything. The only fire was in the kitchen where the potluck committee let their applesauce cake burn up." "Well," Reverend Hopkins looked unhappy, "the whole church is in an uproar. Do you think we should call off the pageant?" "Certainly not," said Mother. By that time, she was mad too. "Why, it's going to be the best Christmas pageant we've ever had." Of all the lies she had told so far, this one was the biggest, but you had to admire her. It was like General Custer saying, "Bring on the Indians." "Maybe so," Reverend Hopkins said. "I'm just afraid that no one will come to see it." But he was wrong. Everybody came to see what the Herdmans would do. We'll pause there for now. With only one more chapter to go, we're starting to see that the Herdmans are truly not going to give up, and neither is Mother, who feels a little bit hopeless about this pageant happening. Nobody's seen it go all the way through, but what we do see is we continue to see the Herdmans trying to understand a story that to everybody else is just on repeat. It's the same thing they've heard every time. But the Herdmans are seeing it in a different light and desperately trying to understand how a situation that seems so unfair is one of the greatest stories ever told. We'll finish up next time. We'll see you then. And remember, always look for the good in the world. And if you can't find it, create it yourself. Thanks for joining us. Link in the description to the full playlist. I'm trying. Whew. Our last rehearsal. And for the next, I did it again. Yeah. Woohoo! Okay. I love that I'm reading the stuff that my mom read to me and that I read to our kids, and that I'm drinking my honey lemon tea, which is a little remedy, a natural remedy that my mom used to make for me, and now I make it for our kids and now me. Well, we never did go straight. I said, who pierced her?